Hi, everyone. I'm Irene Burgess. I'm the Executive Director of the Maine Cheese Guild. And today we have a esteemed panel of 4 cheesemakers from the state of Maine. And for many of you, you may not be aware of how important cheesemaking is to the state of Maine and how long we've been in operation. The Cheese Guild's been around since 2003, and there have been cheesemakers in Maine before then. But what we wanted to do is sort of talk about what life is like as a cheesemaker in Maine, talk a little bit about the opportunities and challenges for cheesemaking in Maine, and then talk a little bit about where we kind of see it going in the next few years. So I will stay out of this and except if I have to ask you guys questions. But why don't we pass this along and have each of you introduce yourselves and where you're affiliated.
Hello, I am Caroline Gander. I am the head cheesemaker at Fuzzy Udder Creamery in Whitefield, and I am also on the board of the Maine Cheese Guild.
My name is Heather Donahue. My husband Doug and I own and operate Balfour Farm in Pittsfield. I'm a member of the Cheese Guild. I serve as secretary for the board, and we milk between 12 and 20 Normandy cows and make certified organic cheeses.
I'm Jean Coons, owner and operator of Kennebec Cheesery in Sydney with my husband Peter, and mostly goats. And I'm trying to semi-retire from it, but I'm also president of the Maine Cheese Guild.
Hey everyone, I'm Kaylee at Abraham's Creamery. I own and operate a dairy there. We have goats, alpines, and Saanens, about 70 of them, and we're in Newport, Maine, if I mentioned that. Yeah, thank you.
All right, we're going to start. All of these cheesemakers have come to cheesemaking in a variety of ways, and some of you have asked us at the Maine Cheese Guild booth, sort of how do you get started in cheesemaking? And you'll hear 4 very different stories here. And so I'm going to ask each of you to talk about how did you get into cheese, and particularly cheese in Maine, and what was your journey to this point? And we'll start with you.
So I sort of fell into cheese making, not accidentally, but I also didn't intend to do it. I'd always loved cheese. It was always a passion, but I thought I would do it as like a retirement hobby. I moved up to Maine just because I like being here and was working in antiques. That business closed, and a friend knew someone who needed help. I worked for Jean for many years as her assistant cheesemaker. She taught me everything I know, and recently was hired by Fuzzy Udder to be their head cheesemaker. So I just feel very fortunate to have had incredibly good luck throughout the years.
Our dairy journey started first with having cows, and we shipped milk for 6 years before we thought about starting a cheese-making journey. And in order to do that, we actually moved to Maine so that we could start making cheese. Prior to that, we lived in northern New York, where it is very, very cold for much of the year, and we really wanted a different scene for that and a much easier place to market. There's not very many people that live in St. Lawrence County, New York, and it's probably one of the poorer counties in New York State. So it wasn't going to be a great opportunity for local marketing for us. And the hurdles to operate a small-scale dairy for processing are much higher in New York State than they are here in Maine. So Maine definitely offered us a lot more opportunity to do that, and also offered us an opportunity to downsize our farm. At the time, we were milking 50 cows and just shipping milk, and when we moved to Maine, we downsized to 10 and started processing our milk. So it really gave us an opportunity to change our quality of life. We milk once a day, which really kind of eases the schedule a little bit and frees up time for processing. It's really kind of impossible to milk twice a day and do all your crops and do the cheese making and the marketing. So milking once a day was a big change for us. And moving to Maine was like the biggest opportunity for us to do that type of operation. And attracting us to Maine, I guess, was the land base, finding some affordable land with some infrastructure that was already there. We bought a derelict farm. It hadn't been used in over 4 years. And kind of rejuvenated it and brought it back. We've been doing a lot of work with the university on soil health. But as far as our path to cheese making, it really began with cows. Growing up, I always wanted a cow. I didn't live in an area you could really have a cow. My parents had a 2-acre wooded backyard, so it wasn't an option. And when we got married and had kids, we started with like a couple baby chicks, and then we got a pig, and then I got my cow. We started with Highland beef cows, and then we finally got a milk cow, and we had a family milk cow for several years. And when we moved to New York, we bought this farm, and we were trying to figure out what to do. And we said, oh, we're not going to do dairy. It's way too much work. And we ended up starting a 50-cow dairy in New York State. And here we are with kind of a hobby that got a little out of hand, but it's really kind of our love for cows and working with cows that led us to cheese making and having that be a way for us to learn and earn a living on the farm.
You may hear a little bit of an accent. I'm from New Zealand originally. I grew up on a sheep farm, but my husband's from Maine. I met him when he came over to the university, and I kept him in New Zealand for 20 years after we actually spent 3 years in Switzerland. So that's where I really saw that there were different cheeses than Colby and cheddar that I'd grown up with. But we came back to Maine in 2001, and I actually came to a Women in Ag conference here and met Caitlin Hunter, who was Appleton Creamery. She'd been milking goats for 20 years or so, and she started up the Maine Cheese Guild. So it was sort of fortuitous in timing. And we knew Penny and John Duncan of York Hill as well. So we decided to jump into goat dairy. So I bought some goats from Caitlin, 10 little ones, and we started from there. So the Maine Cheese Guild ran some workshops. Kathy Biss from Scotland and Margaret Morris from Canada, a few others. And anyway, so then it's sort of terrifying, but you're just following a recipe, practicing at home in your kitchen. And it was fortunate because it was when the farmers markets were just opening up and expanding, and we're looking for people. So we were licensed in 2008. And so it's been a joy actually to see how the local food movement has really grown over these years. So, and I hope it continues. But that's basically it.
Well, I'm a Maine girl. I started off in the little Bangor area. My father owned the Mex restaurant in Ellsworth, and my grandfather and my mother ran Frank's Bake Shop. It's in Bangor, right downtown. It's almost 82 years now. So I grew up in the food industry and decided to go to the university for marketing and wanted to get out of the food industry, which is kind of funny because here I am, 15, 20 years later. But I moved to North Carolina, did the busy lifestyle of home inspections for high dollar accounts, and then getting, barbecue on the side, all these nice barbecue joints in North Carolina, South Carolina. And you're traveling, and then you see these huge hog trucks, double-decker, and you're like, where is my food coming from? So my partners, Leslie and Lou Harris, we decided to drop everything. He survived liver cancer, and we just all wanted to get grounded. So we moved to upstate New York in a little place called Spencer, and went to Ithaca for a lot of workshops at Cornell University, and did some outreach there. And I got pretty good at, doing what I did in upstate, and I befriended some friends there and did a couple of, just community lectures and stuff. about soap making and goat meat in general. We started the goat meat. That's where we were because we wanted to know where our food came from. And then my mom back here in Maine at Frank's Bake Shop, she's like, hey, I got a farm in Newport. I put a down payment on it. You guys are coming here. So I decided, and Leslie and Lou, we were like, okay, let's do it. And we moved to Maine and started, we had our goat meat, our Kiko and Boer goats. And in Maine, it's kind of tough if you're in the meat industry and you can't grow your own food. We started on a 60-acre farm that was all trees. So we had to do a quick switch to dairying, and it really saved our farm. In 2016, it just kind of took off. We started in a little mini barn, which is completely, we didn't want to do that. We wanted a building, but we were encouraged actually by the state inspectors. Yeah, go ahead, split it in two, make it a nice clean space for making cheese, and the other to do a milking parlor. And we were in there for a good amount of time until we got our big new facility made. We have a brand new. Well, I call it brand new, but it's almost our 4th year in it. We have a pit parlor. We have a aging cave. Everything is ergonomically correct, and each step is measured out, which I was fortunate enough to go to a Peter Dixon in Vermont class, and he helped us make a blueprint of it. And so it's there. We're having a great time. Each year is growing. So it's fun. But I think that's about it.
What do you, I mean, all have significant experience, but as we talked about in different ways, what do you see are the major opportunities and challenges for the cheese industry in Maine over the next couple of years? What are the things that are going to be both exciting to watch and interesting to be part of? So.
Oh, just throw me in the mix there. I wasn't prepared for that. Okay. So challenges and opportunities. Okay. Challenges are, I think the perennial challenge for Maine dairy and Maine cheesemakers is getting more people to eat Maine dairy and eat Maine cheese, and getting local stores and restaurants to put it on the menus, put it on the shelves, and really elevate the local food to the point where it becomes the first thing that people reach for, and not just that special occasion kind of cheese, which is, I think, how a lot of people kind of think about Maine cheese is like, oh, it's a special occasion, a birthday, an anniversary, a holiday. I'll get that little cheese for that one time. But to make it an everyday type of purchase that people just don't even think about. Everyone enjoys seeing the bucolic farms and fields and cows and the tractor you have to go slowly behind and pass carefully. But that can't exist unless people are actually eating the products that we're growing, whether it be the dairy, the grains, the vegetables. Having local support for the farms is really essential. And the opportunities is the opposite side of that, is that there's so much collaboration in our industry, as well as cross industries with the Wine Guild and other specialty food producing branches of agriculture in Maine. I think that we have a really big opportunities to push that message and put that out in front of people and show the value position of what local food can do, not only for supporting farms and families, but building communities and neighborhoods, and communities within like a town or a county, and communities within an industry. And that's something that I've seen as a huge opportunity for the Maine Cheese Guild, is providing that space for communication and collaboration among our members, as well as with other areas of the state government, local governments, and even national, having cheese from Maine and dairy from Maine having a national footprint. We have Pineland Farm is a very large producer. They buy millions of gallons of locally made milk every year, and they're growing their business as well up and down the East Coast. We have some really fine cheesemakers that place nationally and even at the world's best competitions for cheese quality, and that's something that we should be shouting from the rooftops, that there's some excellent producers here in Maine of dairy and cheese products. And I think that's a huge opportunity going forward, is to really like promote Maine cheeses and shout it from the rooftops or the barn tops.
Now, you've sort of nailed it, Heather. I think, yeah, no, it's fine. The other thing I think that we have trouble with, we're a lot of small producers, and one thing is distribution. We have a hard time if you're looking after the animals, you're making the cheese, you're selling it locally, but then it's just taking that time to go to distribute it further away from your area. So I think that is certainly one big challenge for most cheesemakers. But yeah, I'm trying to think, what else? Opportunities. Well, I mean, yeah, it is really putting it out there, I guess, and trying to encourage people to buy local. The amount of cheese that we make is minuscule, or getting it out there and selling it is minuscule compared to the amount of cheese that Mainers eat. So I guess it is just trying to get that brand of cheese. I've always said that Vermont seems to do it well. I mean, a lot of their stores, little local stores, all sell their local cheeses. And if we could get it into those more just small local general stores, it would be great. But it requires people to buy it, so it is just that conundrum.
Well, those are really good ones. I find as a cheesemaker, some of the challenges and being farmstead is the winter. Well, Maine is vacation land, and all the vacationers go away. So finding a local market and encouraging our fellow Mainers to buy local and buy local cheese and to get interested in it, find a bond. It's also, spending the time to market your product because you're so busy running around doing all kinds of other things. But the opportunities are there, and the opportunity to create a whole new cheese, a whole new product, to connect with customers, it's all there. And the Maine Cheese Guild has done a lot for local cheesemakers. I think we have a lot of local cheesemakers in Maine compared to other states. And so that's encouraging and exciting for people to craft their own products.
I think another real challenge that I'm increasingly worried about is people's ability to afford luxury goods, that people feel like they don't have extra room in their budget to buy the nice cheese, even though the nice cheese supports a local family and a local business and is ultimately better for the long-term environment and economy than buying, the Land O'Lakes thing at the grocery store. And part of that is convenience, and part of that is just pure ability to afford things. So I think using sort of the guild as also an opportunity to talk to politicians and lawmakers and other industry people about why investing in local produced goods and economies benefits the larger state as a whole, and also showing people that there's a reason why the mozzarella you buy at the grocery store is so cheap. You're paying for that elsewhere down the line by people not being paid what they deserve to be paid, by farmers not getting what they need, by not being able to care for their animals well. So that is a big concern that I have. But I do think people really want to be engaged with their local food scene and their local economy and are really missing community. And we, as a collaborative collection of small businesses, are able to provide that sense of community that people are really lacking. So not just it being a trade organization, but also sort of a social organization is a real benefit to us, that we're not going through our problems alone, that we can, collectively solve a problem that we're all having. So I see us working together as a real opportunity for us in the future.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn. In the year to come, I mean, we've been through the pandemic. That was certainly exciting for everyone. And then we've kind of had inflation and the recovery, and I keep hearing from people, it's time to go back to normal, and I'm thinking there's a new normal kind of. But in the year to come, what excites you specifically for what you're doing, and then what excites you about cheese in Maine generally? What can we do in the year to come that you think that you're looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to retirement. Or not having to get up early in the morning to when kidding starts. I don't think I'll have any kidding in April. Well, I'll have one or two, but not 40 or 50. Yeah. But I'm interested in seeing the rise in I'm excited that there's still young people who are interested in taking on the challenge of trying to make a business with cheese making. So, and I'll encourage that as much as I can with the Guild. So I think it is. People are becoming more aware of what goes into their bodies, affects their bodies, and it is becoming a health issue, really. I guess everyone in New Zealand, food is much more expensive. I guess this is the land of cheap food, and people expect it, and also petrol and gas, which I could go on about. But so I'm hopeful that people are being more aware of the environment, of the pluses to having local good food, and we'll just keep trying to be hopeful about that.
Yeah, I guess I agree with Jean as when I was pondering that question as well, as people are more aware of less sugar. No, I heard the FDA just banned red dye number 40, which yay, all right. So I really think that there's awareness. I know, like when I moved to Maine and started my meat goat, nobody really wanted goat meat, and as soon as the dairy started in 2016, there was like a local movement, and everybody wanted to use good products and create like really nice dishes at home for their family. And it's just exciting to see that, and for us to be able to reach out to these people at the farmers market and see them. You create a product, you milk the goats, you kid all night long and barely get any sleep, and then your final product reaches one person, one child that like went to a goat camp and said, mom, check this out, it's so good, and they entice their parents to actually encourage them to eat goat cheese, and they're like, oh wow, this is great. So yeah, I think things are going exciting in the industry of cheese and in Maine as well, and I'm excited for it.
I think 2025 can be a year of discovery for people. We've been here for 2 days at the Ag Trade Show, talking to people at the Maine Cheese booth, sampling some of our cheeses, and people have not had them before, and they're discovering them, and they're saying, I like this, this is really good, and they're surprised in a good way, and they're like, where can I buy it? Did you bring anything to sell with you today? And we're just sampling today. We didn't bring things to sell, but there's all kinds of ways to engage with Maine dairy and Maine cheese. And primarily is the Maine Cheese Festival is our primary, as an organization, is our forward-facing to the consumer event. It's a full day of discovering cheeses. We have about 20 or so cheesemakers that attend, another 40 other Maine food producers, music. Everyone is sampling food, and so there's a lot of opportunity to explore and discover Maine cheese, and I think that should be our message for the year, is to come and explore and discover and find a new dairy product, find a new cheese product, find a new artisan food product that's made in Maine with Maine ingredients, because that is the foundation of our economy here in Maine. We all felt it during the pandemic when because we're at the end of the distribution line for everything. And if we can be more self-reliant and grow more of our own food here in the state of Maine, it'll be good things all around for our communities, the health of our children and our residents, as well as health of our small businesses too.
I think there's an increasing willingness to try new flavors and interesting things that people haven't had before. So just personally, it's really fun to create new recipes or new flavors of things off of your base recipes, because it keeps it from getting stale and you get to use your creative outlet. And it's a way to attract people who, might like something spicy, so you do a spicy thing, or they might like something sweet, so you try doing something a little bit more on the sweet direction. So I think that lack of fear of trying new things is really positive. It makes it very fun as somebody who both sells and makes cheese. Yeah, and also just that we're a really collaborative community. It's a really great place to make cheese. We're not competitive between each other, which is just such a wonderful gift, especially as a woman in a workplace. It's really nice to be supported by other people who understand what I'm going through. We do have male members, I promise, when they're not represented today. We're happy to have all types. But it is just a really gift to be in a female-dominated space as a woman in a traditionally female-dominated field. I really like that sense of continuity. And I think, like I said earlier, people are kind of missing that tradition, and there's a way to have that positive tradition from the past that we're looking towards the future. So I hope that we can all sort of realize that there's a value to protecting those traditional fields as well.
Great. Thank you, Karen. Now, one of the things Jean mentioned, and studies on consumer preferences show that cheese eaters are concerned not only about the significant health benefits of cheese and dairy products, but also about sustainability in dairy production practices and making practices. Can any of you folks talk about how you handle some of the sustainability issues in your facilities and your farms?
We switched from plastic to glass containers for some of our fresh cheeses, which we're not using plastic and is recyclable. Also, we got better shelf life, so there was that unintended benefit to that. So there's a lot of unintended beneficial consequences to thinking a little bit more environmentally consciously. And also just trying to sell locally, promoting the fact that these aren't cheeses that have been shipped internationally on an airplane. They're both fresher and have a lot less carbon wrapped up in them. So I think just the fact that a lot of us are small producers, many of them are farmstead producers, is inherently already a lot more sustainable. And we sell food to our communities. We don't want to have a bad relationship with our neighbors because they're our primary customer base. So being sustainable in terms of developing that relationship, I think, is also very important.
As far as sustainability, we've also made some changes to our packaging. Probably 12 years ago, we switched from plastic to glass for our yogurt jars, and we do jar returns on them so people can give us the jars back. We clean and sanitize them and reuse them when we can. And that made a huge difference not only in the volume of yogurt, but a willingness to buy for the customers. They liked that feeling of they were doing something good, they were getting a high quality product, and they came back to the table again. So maybe they were going to buy something else while they were there. And so that's one thing that we do. Another thing that makes our farm a little bit unique is we've tried to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, both in our packaging but also in our operation. So our farm is completely off the grid. We're not grid tied at all. We run a generator while we're milking in the morning because there's so many pumps and things running at once. And then we shut it off once we're done milking, and we run on solar power and battery power for the rest of the day until we milk again the next morning. And that makes us pretty unique. There's a lot of farms that utilize solar power for either hot water systems or just power generation to go into the into the grid, but ours is like a self-sustaining system. So we've tried to reduce our diesel use for that, and also be very conscious of making sure that we're using that generator as little as we possibly can when it's a sunny day. We're done milking, pipeline's done, we shut that right off, and we run on solar power. We're also a grazing-based dairy, so the cows are doing the harvesting of the crops for a majority of the part of the year. And then the rest of the time we harvest our own crops, so we can do them in a timely manner that we're getting the highest value possible for feed value for our cows. And doing that means you're feeding higher value feed. You can feed less feed because of it. And we also utilize an organic plan system for our production. All of our products are certified organic, so we don't use any pesticides or herbicides. Even though there's some that you can use that are organic approved, we just don't use them. We have native grasses growing in the field that we can add extra seed to as needed. We tend to add a lot of clover because that's a higher feed value. And so those are some of the things that we've tried to do to kind of like mitigate some of the effect, because dairy can be a very energy intensive type of operation. The last thing I'll mention is that we have an aging space that we built underground. And because it's underground, it's about the size of a 2-story garage, on about 7 feet under with 5 feet of soil over the top. And because it's underground, it has a passive cooling system with pipes that go another 7 feet underground and then out to draw in air that gets cooled naturally by the soil temps. And that really reduces the energy that's needed to keep the cheese cold and at a proper temperature while it's aging, because we only have to run a heat pump for maybe 2 months of the year when it's a little bit too hot. The Maine summers are getting hotter and hotter for a little bit longer. Those heat periods of duration are getting longer and starting earlier in like June instead of July now. A couple years ago, it started the middle of May. It just got hot and never stopped. And so having that in our operation going forward is going to be reducing the carbon footprint that we have for a cooling product.
Like Heather, we cut our own hay on the property. We're not organic as such, but we tend to organic practices. So we do feed GMO-free grain. We put organic fertilizers on the fields. So we're as close to organic and natural as we can be. We also have we put solar on the cheesery in 2012, and that basically covers a lot of the costs of the cheesery and the milking parlour there. And we use glass for our yogurts and other things. So I guess it is just being aware of and trying to be as sustainable as we can. And yeah, we will really like the land to be continued as a farm. So I mean, you think of the people who cleared the land in Maine, all those rocks, all those trees, and kept those fields open. So the work that went into it is just amazing. So it'd be nice to keep those going as a field. We know how quickly it comes back over the road. It's stopped. We've got some photos from Peter grew up on the farm that we were in, and you can see the trees just blocking the view and growing like crazy, and losing pasture is so fast. But so we'll just hope to keep it as a farm.
I think, like these other women, we use glass on our feta and our yogurts, try to do as much as possible. And our goats, we have a unique situation. Like I said before, our farm is 63 acres, and about 60 of it is trees. We have, 4 acres of pasture, which for 70 goats, that's not a lot of pasture. But I did rotational grazing on that as much as I could. But we transitioned to, I had purchased 2 livestock guardian dogs, Turkish Kangals, in hopes, in our dreams actually, we eventually wanted to get them in the woods, but coyote activity kind of impede that. So the past couple of really when we started getting some droughts, it really pushed us to get the goats in the woods. We use actually a drill to drill holes in the rock because we're on a knoll. It's rocky land too. So, and we had our trees first logged when we got there in hopes of saplings come up. So our goats actually graze in their natural environment in the woods. We do get them on the younger ones on our pasture that we planted organic bird's foot trefoil, and we amended the soil for that, which is nice. But it's really fun to get them out there and see them in their natural habitat. The other thing is when we got our new cheese making facility, we decided to go solar, kind of like Heather, but we're not off grid because it would have cost twice the amount. We have 93 solar panels in hopes we sell back to the grid, and one day hopefully we can get battery backup for the solar panels that we have and be non-reliant. But it's nice because our electric bill has dropped significantly. Pasteurizers are a big culprit of electricity, so it's nice to have the solar power like Jean does on her cheesery as well. So the one thing we did find out with our new facility, we have 6-inch walls, and we did some good insulation. All we need is heat pumps to heat our facility. We don't need to do propane or oil with a boiler. I had all the radiant heating and the flooring done up, but that was not needed, which is good. I mean, it was money not that I didn't need to spend, but it was a nice surprise that we actually could do that and run the facility by itself. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, we do the best we can with the goats, like planting the hay, or planting our pastures with organic amendments.
Let's talk a little bit about the distribution issue that Jean brought up. And first of all, just tell us where you sell or your facility sells the product you make and how the different avenues you've chosen and why to market your goods.
We are self-distributed, so we do it all ourselves. We drive all over the place with lots of cheese in the back of the van. But we sell at a couple local farmers markets, natural food stores, co-ops, and also supply food to more restaurants. And distribution just really becomes a challenge because of the scale of our members. We're all small, like 3 people and under, I think, are the majority of the members that we have, are very small operations. And it's hard to take the time out of, especially if you're a farmstead and you have animals and you're making food and you're doing your books and you're trying to also have a life, to then say, okay, I'm going to sit down and write a HACCP plan or a food safety plan. And a lot of the bigger distributors require that level of planning. So there's this chicken and egg of, you can't get more business, you can't get picked up by a distributor until you have some assurances that you can give them, and also the insurance is very expensive. But in order to take the time, you have to have an employee, and you can't pay the employee until you make more money. So you get stuck in this cycle of, I wish I had the time to do a food safety plan. I wish I had the time to talk to somebody about a HACCP plan. But even at it's just really hard to find the time to do everything. And the marketing and the distribution end up being the lowest priority because your animals need to be fed and the cheese needs to be made or flipped and sold somewhere because you need to have some cash flow. So it's just the really difficult piece of the puzzle. And as somebody said, maybe Heather, we're at the end of the route. No one wants to come up here and make 17 stops to pick up, 3 wheels of cheese, a case of yogurt, et cetera, et cetera. So the scale of the producers that we have and the location we're in make it really difficult. So if anyone has great distribution ideas, we are all ears.
Distribution is definitely one of the distribution and marketing. Like, none of us are marketers by trade. It's all by the seat of our pants and what we can learn and glean at workshops and events like this, where we can go to a little 2-hour thing here and there. But distribution is a challenge. We are self-distributed. We do farmers markets. We do the Portland Farmers Market right now is our only farmers market that we do. We've done up to 9 farmers markets in one summer when we first started building our business here in Maine. That was a lot. We had a couple interns, and my daughter was still living at home before she went to college. And my husband and I, at one point, we did 4 farmers markets, 2 days a week, and then 2 on 2 other days. So it was a lot, but it was what we needed to do to build the farm. Since then, we've narrowed it down to just the Portland Farmers Market. Part of that is a shortage of labor, not having enough people to go around. And part of that is that when you're in a lot of markets, you find the ones that fit you best and the ones that you can grow the most in. And that's, for us, that's the Portland market. So that's, we've kind of put all our eggs in that basket, or all the cheese in the truck for that market. But we also self-distribute to kind of limited restaurants. The restaurant scene is not one that we really have personal experience. I'm not a former chef that became a cheesemaker or anything like that. Like, other people have had that experience, so it's not in my wheelhouse. But we've had really good luck selling to organic food stores, natural food stores, co-ops, farm stands. And during the pandemic, a lot of farms, particularly vegetable farms, started farm stands where they would sell their own products as well as breads. And then they added cheeses because they already have coolers running for their greens. And then they added meats. So I think the one good thing that came out of the pandemic was the breadth of local food that can now be found locally at farmers stands throughout the state of Maine. A lot of those have some staying power. And I'm sure Kaylee will talk about Farm Drop being one of those options. That's kind of like a mobile farmers market kind of. And we also work with 2 small distributors. Crown of Maine is here in the state of Maine, and a little bit into Massachusetts, a little bit in New Hampshire. Local Goods Gathered was an idea of our former Maine Cheese Guild president, Holly Aker. She built that out as a distribution, a different kind of distribution model, kind of as a broker versus a distributor. So they have the relationship with the distributors. They source the cheese, they hold the cheese, and then sell it to the distributors who take it to the final customer. And so we've had some success there. What was the other thing I was just going to say? There was a third thing there, and it's gone. This is the part of, like, holding lots of things in your head. So it was there. Oh, and then we also self-distribute. We are kind of at that point that Caroline was talking about, like looking for a distributor that can take our stuff a little bit further than we can take it ourselves. We've recently acquired a refrigerated food truck, a refrigerated delivery van, so that we can kind of take stuff to Boston and give those assurances of food safety, temperature control to a distributor in the Boston area. And then we can deliver everything between here and there, and then they can take it further beyond. I don't have any desire to drive further past Boston. That's far enough. And that kind of grows as your supply grows. You need to find more customers for your products, and that's kind of the point we're at in our business. Is we're growing and we're looking for more customers and more places to place our products.
Yep. So yeah, I started with 3 with farmers markets. So mostly farmers markets, and then I guess you expand out a little bit more. After the pandemic, we went more wholesale. So some CSAs with cheese added on, and also the Daybreak Growers Alliance group and Unity have been great for us. But yes, and I guess you can talk about the Farm Drop. Yeah. But certainly distribution for small producers is so difficult, and it would be, we used to have the Milk Mavens, which started over the pandemic to distribute small, several cheesemakers, but that's closed now. So it's just, yes, that would be my wish, actually, is to try and see how a lot of small producers in Maine could cooperate to distribute their products.
Yeah, I totally agree with that because Milk Mavens really helped us through sometimes. I started, actually, Jean was in the Skowhegan market, and she left for another market back when I first started out in 2016, and I had a chef say, hey, you want to come to Skowhegan? I highly recommend, first, if you're starting out, that's how people meet you. That's how people say, hey, Kaylee, I love that cheese, and they bond with you, and they try. It was hard to fill Jean's shoes, but I did. But it's really like, it's nice because other farmers will say, hey, this farmer's market's opening up. How about if you try that? You'd be a good fit. And that's really how someone starts out in it. We, as Abrahams, we had other opportunities, the farmers market, Milk Mavens, and then Farm Drop came in onto the scene. And we met the CAO, Hannah Sumler. She's a local Mainer from Blue Hill. And she created this platform that is like an online farmer's market. You can go on there, register, and you can pick local foods from 20 to 30 different local farms in your area. So it's nice. You can see my name on one side. There's like a ton of lists. You can search by farms. You can search by food. If you wanted beef, then you could just order which cut of beef you wanted. And in general, there's always availability. Nothing runs out. But it's nice because you can go to different hubs. We have a hub. The other place that we just purchased a year ago, I don't know, a week ago, we ended up buying a country store. So we have a brick and mortar where we sell our local products and a couple other farms where our goal is to make this convenience store the big cookie store. Instead of putting sugar in people's mouths, we're giving opportunities to have local foods. So with that, just the beginning is hard to get up and running, but once we get going, we're really going to support other local farms in our Abraham's Country store on Route 2 in Newport. And what else do? We just normal stuff, co-ops throughout the state. We have at Natural Living Center a full array of products. And we do Daybreak Growers Alliance, which is like a CSA, which is really nice too. But yep.
Does anybody here have a question of our cheese folks, our cheese mavens? We'll answer them all. They have to be kind of cheese related, though, don't they?
We'll give our opinions.
Well, one of the things that's very impressive, I just started in my position about 6 months ago. And one of the things that's been very impressive to me is how, as you say, it's a very collaborative group. And it's a group that is really interested in supporting what the best that Maine has to offer. And I think cheese is one of those things that we can enjoy. Anything else that anybody wants to say for the last? Explore and discover is what Heather gave us as a mantra for this year. So thank you all for attending and listening to us, and we hope that you find some Maine cheese that you particularly like in your corner of Maine. Thank you.